Nonprofit Management. This is the presentation, Eastern University Campola College Alumni Sharing Program. Matt, you're aware this is the final adjudication of your Capstone project for passage through our program.
Yes.
You will be rated on academic writing skills, presentation, theoretical analysis and praxis, research methodology, practical application into the nonprofit sector, which were all posted onto the Student Learning Assessment Plan when you came into the program and was spoken of in the opening weekend. There are 3 gradings. Pass with distinction is for excellent proficiency and understanding. A pass is a required skill level at the as a graduate student, and a fail is a significant deficiencies that do not demonstrate the minimal requirements in that particular category. As your chair, I'm abdicating my vote, and you have 4 assessors, and to pass through this program, you will meet the pass requirements from the overall judgment of the committee on those 5 criteria. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Is that clear?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Matt. You will have 7 minutes to present. At that time, I will give you the 7 minutes time warning. Then you have 3 minutes to close. We will stop assessing you after 10 minutes and close it down, and then we'll open it up to the committee for any questions they might have. All right, fair enough?
Sounds good.
All right, and you're free to go.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt Weaver, and my capstone thesis project was on developing an alumni sharing program between Eastern University alumni to benefit nonprofit organizations as well as those persons who work in the professional sector as certified public accountants or enrolled agents. Just a little background into why this program to develop. In 2001, we all know that there was a lot of corporate fraud. It just wasn't at the for-profit level, it also trickled down into the nonprofit sector. From that, we developed the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, also known as SOX. This mainly impacts for-profit organizations at this point in time. There is discussions in the House Finance Committees. There's also discussions with the Financial Accounting Standards Board to actually make SOX implemented into the nonprofit sector. So what does that mean for nonprofit organizations? Increased costs, which many startup nonprofits, they can't afford that. So if this would go to the nonprofit sector, some of our nonprofit organizations could be looking at some very serious conditions. Some of our nonprofits already are required to file audited financial statements, compilations, and reviews, but that's basically based on if the IRS requests it, and if their bank or their stakeholders and board of directors also choose to have an audited financial statement. So the mission of this particular program would be to connect current nonprofit management students or alumni who are working in the nonprofit sector with persons who are working in the for-profit sector, as I mentioned before, working as certified public accountants or enrolled agents before the IRS. And they would be offering services to the nonprofit organizations as either free or reduced rates for audits, tax consultations, tax return preparation. So looking at the mission, some questions that came up that needed research were, what would drive someone to choose to work in this setting? So volunteerism, and also credibility and legal liability. What would people say about a financial statement that's prepared free of charge or at a reduced rate? And then through that, networking comes in, and we'll talk about that very shortly. So these 3 methods are the 3 most important methods to understand how this would actually impact the nonprofit and Eastern University. If these 3 methods prove feasible and legitimate, the rest of the logistics should be okay. So in doing the research on volunteerism, I did mixed methods. I did two methods. The first one was a survey of Eastern alumni, and I also did focus groups with some alumni and also current nonprofit management students and alumni. These were my three hypotheses for volunteerism. The first one addressing, service and community involvement. What is it that would develop, someone would have a professional and collegiate development with a higher rate of future volunteerism. The perceived value of someone's education. How does that affect your willingness to volunteer? And then looking at expectancy theory and how that drives someone to choose to volunteer their services. So I conducted a survey with Eastern alumni. It was done through surveymonkey.com, and I started with a criteria of alumni who were either enrolled agents or certified public accountants within 50 miles of St. David's. That resulted in 233 people. Then, since we were doing an email survey, we obviously needed their email address. So then we factored that into the report, which brought it down to 129 potential respondents to my survey. Of those 129, they were given 1 week to respond to the survey, and 22 people responded in that week's time frame. So that gave me about a 17% response rate. There's some debate on what research should have. Through some of the courses, we determined that a 17% response rate for this type of research was reasonable. I also did pilot interviews with past alumni in the nonprofit management program and also current students, asking them, as the nonprofit, would you choose to use a service like this? And then I also talked to alumni saying, would you volunteer your services in this type of a program? So volunteer measurement and analysis, these were 5 questions that I thought were most important in proving this. The first one is the current and past volunteering. Brawley in 1981 said that most people who have been involved in volunteering in the past or are currently involved in volunteering will always volunteer. Whereas if someone has not been involved in volunteering in the past, chances of getting them to serve in something is very limited. So 19 out of my 22 respondents said, yes, I would, or yes, I have volunteered in the past.
7 minutes.
Thank you. Their satisfaction of education, 19 out of the 22 people said that they were very satisfied with their education. Willingness to volunteer, 21 out of the 22 agreed, yes, I'm willing to volunteer. And then also the importance of volunteering. This is very interesting, where most people are wanting something back from the volunteering, which is why I talked about networking a little bit ago. People want to receive something back. They want to develop their professional network, and this is an excellent way to do it. You're an accountant, you're going to be with maybe 50 other people volunteering their services. You're going to develop an excellent professional network. Moving into the credibility and legal research, I held 2 focus groups, one of enrolled agents and one of certified public accountants in the Lancaster area. And we addressed what credibility means and how it affects the FASB, GAAP, the generally accepted accounting principles, and also the generally accepted auditing standards. So credibility, there's the debate of what is something that's credible in the accounting world. If I hire someone to audit me and pay them $50,000, is there still independence? And is that financial statement credible versus the person who's giving me a free or reduced service? So there is some research showing that maybe the whole auditing standards need to be changed, meaning a free service of an audited financial statement can be very legitimate and credible. The program structure would look something like this, where Eastern University would partner with the nonprofit organization and the alumni and bring the two together. They would look at both profiles and determine how to best match people. At that point in time, Eastern would bring the two parties together and have them meet and sign a contract, at which point Eastern is then removed from the equation.
1 minute.
And both nonprofit and alumni are then responsible for all communications. So my recommendations are there has to be a need and desire of alumni to choose this program and want to work in it. There would need to be an oversight board of persons who would connect nonprofits and alumni. There would also need to be criteria developed for who qualifies for this program and what alumni are credible enough to give these nonprofit services. Develop a contract for the alumni to sign, and also look into best practices of who else is actually doing this and succeeding. There's Match.com, or VolunteerMatch.com, which is a very similar concept, as well as DePaul University has an ASK program, Alumni Sharing Knowledge, which is also very similar. Any questions?
Yeah, for the
Matt.
uninformed, tell me, what is an enrolled agent?
An enrolled agent is someone who specifically works in tax services. Their actual title is an enrolled agent before the IRS. So they have a certification to essentially work for the IRS and prepare tax returns on their behalf.
They're not a CPA.
They're not CPAs. So they are limited in the types of work that they can do. Karen?
First of all, the alumni that you sent your survey to, are they alumni of what? Of Eastern, of SLD, of what?
Those alumni were of Eastern University as a whole.
Okay.
Since the Campolo College does not have a specific accounting program, so we had to look at the whole college for that particular aspect. But like my pilot interviews and some focus groups that I held, they were of current nonprofit management students or past nonprofit management students from Campolo College.
And thinking about the implementation of it, which I realized wasn't quite your project,
Correct.
but who is Eastern? You said Eastern would do the match, Eastern would sign the contract, or make sure the contract got that signed correctly.
Going back
Who would Eastern be?
Right, going back to my recommendations, you would have an oversight board within the Campolo College, and then that particular oversight board would have a list of nonprofits who need help and a list of professional accountants who also are willing to volunteer or give reduced rate services to nonprofit organizations.
This would be through the Campolo College.
Yes, this is specific for Campolo College.
I have a question, Matt.
Yes,
So you
Denise.
mentioned for-profit, people working in the for-profit sector, the accountants, is that what you're asking for? Or you want, because I got confused, you said Eastern, the alumni, and then the nonprofit, so
Okay, so
is that,
the alumni would be alumni who are working professionally
in
as
accounting?
an accountant,
Right,
either an enrolled agent or a certified public accountant.
okay,
We would then connect them with either current nonprofit organizations who are within the program or past alumni.
so it doesn't matter if they're a nonprofit or a for-profit?
These people? No, does not.
And focus group, do you have the number of respondents or participants in the focus group?
The focus group that I held in Lancaster County, there was 2 of them. The enrolled agent one was 7, and the certified public accountants was 8.
And these are alum from the full Campolo College?
Who were in that particular focus group?
Yeah.
No, I chose to remove myself from actually the Campolo College for that particular part and the Eastern University as a whole, and do a complete different test in actually another territorial area, I guess you could consider it.
Okay.
Geographical area, Lancaster County, how are they responding to this same type of thing?
why did you move away from alumni to just to why did you elect to choose to do that route and not include any Eastern alumni in your focus groups?
Well, that way it helps to give some credibility and validity to the concept. You know, if you're just focusing on specifically, here's my group of Eastern University alumni, how do we actually know that it's not going to work? Because this whole concept could expand to Yale, Harvard, but what if a Yale or Harvard student has no interest in this? What if a Millersville University student says, well, no, this idea, I don't like, it wouldn't work. So it was my attempt to get kind of diversity included into the research.
And I'm sorry, I have one more question
Yeah,
about the best practices. I wanted to make sure that we're comparing apples with apples. You did the volunteer match. What was the other one that you mentioned?
It was DePaul University,
DePaul University.
and they have what's called an ASK, Alumni Sharing Knowledge. And there's some other universities that have the same ASK type of program where they partner alumni who might be accountants, attorneys, English professors with current students who wish to maybe go in that particular direction. They might offer
A mentoring program.
a mentoring type of program, volunteer opportunities for them to at least get their feet wet and kind of test if that's their career path.
Yes.
Now,
Did you actually talk to them, like DePaul or any of the other schools, about what the results were, how these things were functioning, or was it website research?
it was website research, but their websites were very clear, this is succeeding. And also going to like volunteermatch.com, they have their timeline from when they started in 1994 to present day. And you can just see how they're growing on a yearly basis. It was in 2009 that they started posting significant profits from a program like this. Volunteermatch.com is actually a nonprofit. They're now profiting from this type of a concept. So they're partnering professionals with organizations that need volunteer help.
Okay.
Where are they making their money? Just out of
Yeah,
curiosity.
that was my question.
They are actually charging people to put their like resumes and things out there. So they might charge, Stan, you might get charged $20 if you want to volunteer with them. So it's kind of like a yearly membership fee. So the actual nonprofit organization is not charged. It's the person wanting to volunteer their service and develop their network within their particular profession.
Matt, I'm still not convinced this is credible.
Why?
Because you're using, your test case was not CPAs, right? You had 8 focus group respondents that were agents, what do you call them?
No, there was 2 focus groups. The first one was enrolled agents. The
That's
second
what I'm
one,
after.
the
How are they
second,
credible?
how is an enrolled agent not credible? They are certified to work before the IRS. They know tax law inside and out. So if a nonprofit needs tax services, I would go to an enrolled agent before I would go to the certified public accountant.
They're qualified for audits,
Who?
the enrolled agents.
Enrolled agents are not auditors. They can do tax services only.
So
They
how
could
does
do
that
the
help us
nine-
with SOX?
They could do the 990s or something.
Correct.
Yeah, but how does that help us with SOX then?
They
That's
can,
where I see a disconnect.
they can prepare the 990 and the tax forms. You can then go to the enrolled agent, the certified public accountant, and have them prepare and actually give the independence, credibility to those financial statements and numbers. Many organizations actually have 2 people doing both aspects. Because many certified public accountants aren't that familiar with tax law. They're auditors. Enrolled agents are the tax experts.
And they're brought in independently of the CPAs.
Correct. Some CPA organizations will have enrolled agents working with them. So not in every case, but typically that's how it works.
I have one other question.
Yes, Hans?
What's the compelling reason I would want to do this? I mean, your test case with Eastern University was a bunch of Eastern people. If the test case, the structure you're thinking is nonprofit management, most of those people are already engaged in some nonprofit. Why would I want to give up my time to invest in this thing? So obviously your test case from Eastern that are not engaged in volunteerism, there would be a compelling reason to give away some of my time.
So you're saying this group of alumni
Yeah.
volunteering their services?
Yeah, what's the rationale that I would want to give up so much time if I'm already involved in a nonprofit and giving up my time because your original test case was the volunteerism research that you did,
Right.
was with Eastern broad scope. So for example, case study would be somebody from the undergrad that had a wonderful experience at Eastern University, is now an alumni and is working in a food store. And it would be great for me to give away some of my time. So of course there's a compelling reason. Other person, graduate of the nonprofit management program, is already working an accountant as an alum. What would be the compelling reason for them all of a sudden to give more time? Because there's no, it would seem to me, unless I'm wrong, for me to give back more time because there's no magnetic draw.
I do have a question. The first person who's working at the store that you gave the example of, are they either an enrolled agent or a CPA?
Yeah, okay, so working at a food store as a CPA.
Okay. The second point right here, networking. It opens up their networks. There's extensive research that specifically states people do volunteerism for their own self-benefit. So they want to get something out of this. And Barry Wellman, he actually talked about what's called bondedness. And the stronger that bond and network of persons becomes, the more likely you're going to have someone want to volunteer.
So would a junior associate at a CPA firm be encouraged to do this?
Yes. In the CPA focus group that was held in Lancaster, junior accountants, it can work for, but they need to have the approval of the partners or senior managers of that organization to be the final party signing off on that document. So anyone who is a CPA or an enrolled agent within an organization, public organization, they can help, but they must have the approval of the owners of that organization before they can.
And would the owner, why would the owners approve that? Why would they want to see their people do this?
Networking.
So they want to charge them the next year, or what? Is that what you're saying? Networking for more business?
You could find someone who, it hands if both of us were CPAs working in this program, and I was working for Ernst & Young, and I said, hey, we need a new partner. I know Hans Toki's looking for a job. Excellent CPA, volunteers his time.
That's legitimate.
We need to hire him.
So I'm on the other side of things. What's in it for Easter?
Getting your alumni to volunteer, which can lead to donors. So coming from the alumni relations aspect, you now have, say you had all 129 people that this was emailed to, or all 233 people who met this criteria. They all say, yeah, I want to volunteer my time. You now have them engaged in your organization. Now they're back engaged with Eastern, loving it. Now alumni relations develops, development professionals.
I give my time, not my money.
From fundraising standpoint and philanthropy, you just don't have to give money to be a donor.
But again, if it's giving back to somebody else, what's in it for Eastern?
Yeah, because I understand.
Well, there's the money aspect, but you're also connecting with alumni. So really, Eastern is also doing networking. So you can have your list of CPAs and enrolled agents who might be recruiting new students for Eastern nonprofit program because they see, hey, this nonprofit organization that I'm doing auditing for right now, The president of that is enrolled in the nonprofit management program. Excellent. So my friend who's looking at starting a master's degree, I'm going to tell them, go to Eastern. So there's both the development and the enrollment aspect that Eastern could benefit from this.
Yeah, you said it.
1 minute left. Do you have any more questions?
I do.
Sure.
Can you give us just a little bit of background on the genesis of the, or why you chose this project over some others? Where does this come from in your soul, your heart? Is it,
No.
yeah.
This is actually my second capstone. I never finished the first one. I started with a concept that I was interested in. But then in a class with Professor Toki, in a discussion board, this concept came up as we were talking about credibility, volunteering. I work in alumni relations, I work in development. This type of concept can work at the high school level where I work at. This just does not have to work with Eastern University. This can work in the broader scope of things. So for me personally, working in a nonprofit, I work with volunteers all the time. So this is interesting for me to see why they might actually be volunteering for Lancaster Mennonite School. And I could even potentially develop something like this at the high school level. It would be a much different concept, but if the overall concept works with accounting, which is one of the most regulated areas, it can almost work anywhere. A marketing concept can fit into this very easily. Consultation, education. So that's my passion that developed into this, was what I'm currently doing and helping develop alumni relations.
All right, thank you, Matt. If we'd ask you and the observers to leave the room, you can go home long as you need to go.